to start by setting it equal to 0, subtracting the 5 on each side, so 4x squared plus 4x minus the 5 equals 0. It turns out it does not factor, and I don't want to mess with the leading coefficient and all that, so I'm going to go straight to the quadratic formula. B squared minus 4ac. Now b squared is 4 squared, making 16, minus 4 times negative 5. That becomes 16. The negative times negative makes plus. 4 times 20 is 80, and we have 96. And I'm going to just right now break that down. 16 times 6, which is a pair of 4s and a 2 and a 3. And the pair of 4s will come out of the quadratic formula. So back up to the top here, we're going to have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of 96 all over 2a. Negative b turns into negative 4 plus or minus, and that becomes 4 root 6 all over 2a. That's 2 times 4, which is 8. Now I'm going to factor the numerator, divide out a 4, knowing it will cancel with the 8 down below. That will give me negative 1 plus or minus root 6 in the numerator over the 8. Now the 4 and the 8 will cancel, giving me a 1 and a 2, and our final solutions will be negative 1 plus or minus root 6 all over 2. And there you have it. Okay, let's move on. Number 5, wind up there. Oh, we see that one goes a quickie. We can just do the, I lost my words here, difference of two squares process on the left, set equal to 0, and there's our x equals plus or minus 4. On the next problem, I see a quantity squared on the left. I could FOIL it out, but it's easier just to square root each side. And so square rooting each side, the left side becomes x plus 1, the right side plus or minus root 18. And the square root of 18 breaks down. That's a 9 times 2, and the 9 has a pair of 3's within it. And so we're going to rewrite this as x plus 1 equals plus or minus 3 coming out, root 2. And now subtracting the 1 on each side, writing it to the left of the plus or minus sign, we have negative 1 plus or minus 3 root 2 as our solution set. Okay, problem number 7. Ooh, a fraction. Let's have some fun with this. We've already got a quantity squared, so I'm going to just square root each side. And the left side gives us x plus 3 halves. And on the right, we're going to have plus or minus the square root of 7 halves, which we can't have because we don't want that radical in the denominator. So we're going to rationalize the denominator, multiplying by root 2 over root 2. Now the left side becomes x plus 3 halves, and the right side plus or minus the square root of 14 all over the whole number 2. And luckily we've got a common denominator of 2, so we can rewrite that all over 2. And subtracting the 3 halves on each side leads the numerator with a negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 14. Okay, here we go again, number 8. Again, it's crying out, square root me to both sides of the equation, which we're going to do. We're going to have x minus 13 equals plus or minus 8. And no need for the square root anymore. We kind of used it up, so to speak. Adding 13 to both sides gives us 13 plus or minus 8. Adding the 13 and the 8 gives us 21. Subtracting, we get 13 minus 8, which is 5. So 21 and 5 are two solutions to this equation. Now, here we go, number 9. We're going to start by setting it equal to 0. So 4x squared plus 12x minus 7 equals 0. And the first thing I want to do here is try to factor. And it turns out if I go 2x and 2x, and then minus 1 and plus 7, not 14, 7, then I'm going to have the minus 7 on the L part of FOIL, and I'm going to have a positive 14 and a negative 2 when I put the inner and outer terms together. So that factors, and we've got a nice clean x equals 1/2 or negative 7/2 as our solution set. Now, let's pretend you didn't see that it factors. I think we'd want to use the quadratic formula also. So I'm going to rewrite the problem here. 4x squared plus 12x minus 7 equals 0. And I'm rewriting it only because I've got limited screen space to write through this video with you. So we're going to have a, b, and c. We're going to start with b squared minus 4ac, the discriminant. That becomes 12 squared minus 4 times negative 7. 12 squared is 144. We're going to have negative times negative making plus. 16 times 7 is 112, and that makes 256, which you might recognize as 16 times 16. We're now going to have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of that 256 all over 2a. Now x equals negative b, that becomes negative 12 plus or minus 16 all over 2a. That's 2 times 4 making 8. And so we're going to get x equals, adding in the numerator, negative 12 plus 6 gives us 4/8, or x equals negative 12 minus 16 makes negative 28 over 8, and each of those fractions can reduce, giving us 1/2 or negative 7/2, which we knew was the answer from up above. I basically divided both numerator and denominator by 4 to get those values.